All right. Everyone's ready? We'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to the budget information meeting for West River Modified Education District. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda, folks? No? Should be a pretty quick agenda. Members of the public, if you're here to speak or ask questions about the budget, wait until that part of the discussion. If there's something else that you're here for, you can bring that up now. Nothing? Okay. Anybody got correspondence? No? All righty. All right, on to old business. We can start talking about the budget. I would ask that if you speak, you identify yourself and also your town of residence, just for that camera. And hopefully everybody's signed in over there so that our recording secretary can accurately reflect who was here. So I'll start off just by, we had, after the last budget failed, we met and discussed, where we should go from there. Traditionally when the budget fails, it's because we've overspent, and so we did reduce the budget by $100,000. We've tried to maintain the programming that we had and, just move some things around to realize a little savings. But really, we're here to answer questions more than anything else. So, please let me know what you want to hear, or if you just want to hear more, sort of overview presentation, I can try and do that. But a direction would be good.
I'd like to start. I'm Heidi Neisman from Brookline.
Sure.
I'd like to know how many students are currently here, or what your projection for next year is.
In the entire
In the whole district,
West
or
River.
just?
Well, in this building to start with, because that's why we're here, right?
Well, that's not actually accurate. I mean, we're a pre-K-12 district,
Yeah.
but because of the way we're configured with Wyndham being in for part of the education and out for part of the education, we had to take our pre-K-12 budget that's developed, as one single budget, sharing services across all the districts, and sort of artificially split it into two budgets so that, we could say this is our pre-K-6 budget that Wyndham doesn't vote on, and this is our 7-12 budget that Wyndham is allowed to vote on. Truthfully, those costs aren't accurate because there's so much that's woven in across the districts. It was split based on population and just doing math, but it's not accurate to say this is what elementary education is actually costing, and this is what high school education is, middle high school is actually costing. So it is because of the way we're set up article-wise why we're here, but it's not truthfully that that's all the expense for just this building.
Okay, so I'll take the number of students in this building, and then I'll take the number of students in the district. How's that?
Okay.
Where's Robert?
In this building, Bob?
For next year,
For next year.
I believe we were, I want to say like 290, 295-ish, something like that.
And
It was
is that
under
in-
300.
Is that including the sixth graders?
That
are
includes the
coming?
sixth graders. Yep.
I was gonna say 288.
Yeah, it's in that neighborhood.
Okay, so.
And then elementary, you're looking at approximately 34 in Jamaica, 116 in Townsend, and 105 in Newbrook.
So I did a little work this morning after reading this, and you only dropped 100,000 from the budget. You're still spending between 4,000 and 5,000 over the state average. I went on the state's website this morning. For a school this size, you're still spending between 4,000 and 5,000 over the state average per pupil. So that's going to cost us. We're going to get penalized for that. So on top of the 13 cents per thousand, now my taxes are going to go up. They're going to go up some more because you're spending over the state average. So everybody I've talked to thus far are gonna vote your budget down again. Because we can't afford for our taxes to go up that much. I already work 2 jobs. So, just saying, you need to sharpen your pencil some more.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I'm Sid Johnson, I'm from Newfane. And I want to speak 8 words. Consolidation is the first word. Consolidation results in the increase of administrators and a decrease of staff. Innovation, consolidation suppresses innovation. It decreases innovation. It becomes more concerned with the bureaucracy and getting a great system. Efficiency, supposedly consolidation increases efficiency. But you know, in the Newbrook School, if a teacher wants to innovate, they walk down and see Scotty and say, I'd like to do this. They don't have to contact Montpelier. They don't have to contact somebody else. They get an efficiency because of size. Flexibility is the 4th word. When you have a bureaucracy, you lose flexibility. You lose the ability to move back and forth quickly and be responsive to needs, especially the needs of children when they're having problems or crisis. Affective. We know in research, and I work as a facilitator, I work with every elementary school in Winder County. And I see the results of what each one of these schools does. And I see the results in Newbrook, which is probably the most supportive school in the entire county. And I see the way in which they support the kids that are in crisis. And these are the kids, because of where I work, these are the kids that are targets for suicide, alcohol, drugs, and so forth. The more we consolidate, the less chance we have to support those kids. The 5th word is mediocrity. Bureaucracy breeds mediocrity. The median always pulls the top down, and it drags the bottom up. But the most innovative part of any organization is dragged down when you have a consolidation, when you have a bureaucracy. Volkswagen decided that they were going to take, Jaguar decided they were going to merge with Ford. And what Ford did is Ford took the Galaxy and they stuck British car on top of it and called it innovation. When Volkswagen decided they were going to buy Audi, they did not go to Volkswagen and put an engine in the back. They went to Mercedes and said, we want to innovate a quality car. They went above to bring the innovation to it. The next to the last word is scope. And the scope of a school system is the way in which it handles the children and the responsiveness to the children. To hell with the budget. We're always going to spend more money in Vermont per kid than most of the country. Fact. We're inefficient in the way in which we deliver education, and we have been. I started, my first school I started in Vermont was 1964, and it was probably the most inefficient school in the state. It was in North Troy. Everybody, K through 12, was in one building, which, by the way, had been condemned by the fire marshal. But I wanted to innovate the school, and I knew the kids had no gym, and no school, and no sports program. So I came down to Montpelier, and I said, hey, we got this stupid idiot Austrian who wants to put a ski slope in. If I could cut down half a day on a Friday, and I convince that fool that owns the ski slope, would you agree to change your requirements for the curriculum and allow that to be their gym? In 1 hour, the State Board of Education changed and said yes. And I went back up, and from that moment on, it's the first ski program in the state of Vermont. I'm not tooting my horn, I'm tooting the horn of the state of Vermont in recognizing the ability to be innovative, the ability to respond in small schools, not consolidated bureaucracies. And the last word I got is spontaneity. Show me a bureaucracy that's spontaneous. It doesn't happen. Vermont, I came to Vermont. I grew up in Texas. That's a bureaucracy. I came to Vermont because it was unique, and it supported the uniqueness of education. It supported the uniqueness of being able to respond to kids on an individual basis. I work every day with the police department, Department of Corrections, Department of Children and Families, and I see the crisis. And you know what? The best elementary school in Windham County is sitting right over there. bar none, because I am in every school. I see the quality. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything that,
Don't move the sixth grade.
I think at this point, those kids know what they're doing next year. We've already transitioned it
And I'll
and
find
changed
you
it.
all later. They're children. They're not high school students.
No, they're middle school students. Anyone, another comment, question? Opinion?
Could you talk about when the vote is? Because that'll be important.
Okay, so the vote is actually next Tuesday. The polling place, it's the standard polling places. Townsend Town Hall, Newfane Firehouse, Jamaica Town Hall, Brookline Town Hall, and Wyndham Town Hall. It's 10 a.m. to 7 in Townsend, 9 a.m. to 7 in Newfane, 10 a.m. to 7 in Jamaica, 9 to 7 in Brookline, and 10 to 7 in Wyndham.
And you can pick up.
You can get absentee ballots right now if you go to the clerk's office and leave your absentee ballot. So, if you can't make it on Tuesday, make it this week or Monday. We want to hear from as many people as possible. Yes, sir.
I'm Bob Bingham from Wyndham. I'm a little disappointed that our representative from Wyndham isn't here tonight. I don't know what the reason is, but is this pretty much the entire board now, is present?
No, we're missing our Wyndham representative, we're missing one at-large representative, and then we're missing one Newfane representative. But she's in Montpelier as a legislator, so
Okay.
we knew she wasn't gonna make it.
I'm sure there's other Vermonters in here, and I'm sure this lady over here is, and I would kind of like to shadow her comments. I live in Wyndham, I built my own house, and I went there because it was kind of remote, quiet, and we wanted a place where you could build a house and have a lot of room to work around the trees and the orchard. I got an orchard up there. So I built the house, and my taxes right now on a 1,600 square foot house are $7,300 and change. One of our biggest problems with this current situation we're in with Education Vermont is the way somebody developed this formula that if you're a so-called gold town, you pay more if you get such a low number of students and your costs are so much higher per student. I think we pay $24,600 roughly for the kids in a pre-K through 6 up in Wyndham. I personally strongly support, as many other people in Wyndham do, but unfortunately, the majority of the people in my town don't get out to vote. And I would love to have our kids in any of these facilities down the valley. I've experienced, my kids grew up with the Newbrook situation, it's now merged with Brookline. But if all the budgets that go through that we voted at town meeting and this budget here, my taxes will probably go up to about $10,000 on a house I built myself and I own. And I'm probably as stubborn old Vermonter as anybody in this room. And I'm online constantly looking for a place to go live where I can enjoy my retirement on what I've set my retirement up to facilitate without sending $10,000 to the state of Vermont. Wyndham, with 292 to 300 registered voters, and thank God for the non-residents that own property up there. If we didn't have non-residents in Wyndham, they couldn't afford to do what they're trying to do up there. And I totally agree with, and I respect everybody's opinion on what should or shouldn't be done. I don't consider to be an expert. I don't think anybody in this room has the ideal answer to what's going on. And it's going to be a kind of a learning process as we wind our way through this. But I go to Flood Brook, which is closest to me, and I've been there for presentations by some other people on different wildlife subjects. That facility is so much more suited to educating our pre-K through grade 8 than Wyndham will ever be, based on what I've observed. And I really think that if the funding wasn't set up the way it is, our little town, once we educate our kids in Wyndham and send a few kids down here to the high school situation, we turn around when that's all paid for, and we send the state of Vermont this year in our budget, it shows a figure of over $800,000 that we don't have anything to say about where that money gets spent. And that is not right. And that's a problem the legislature has got to address. And I know you folks aren't the legislature, but that's one of the reasons that our budgets are so high. It's one of the reasons, I shouldn't say budget, our taxes are so high, excuse me. If we took that $800,000 out of the budget that we come up with every year, it usually runs between $700,000 and $800,000. It's done it ever since I lived there. I've been there 18 years. And I'm done with it. I'm gonna spend the summer fixing my house up, and I'm leaving Vermont probably. It doesn't seem like I should keep sacrificing a $10,000 fishing trip to Alaska when I end up sending it to the state and I don't even know where it goes or what my return is. And I think you'll find that's the thorn in people's saddle. It comes right back to whether you're a sending town or a receiving town makes a big difference. And I've heard people say, I don't know if it's true or not, I haven't researched it, but I've heard that the cost for our students in that little school in Wyndham is higher than any town in the United States. It's $24,600 and change per kid. And the town itself, I don't think, can continue to do that, but those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
I am for consolidation, 100%.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Hi, I'm Walter Ajura here from Townsend. I just have one crazy question. On the back page of your primary per course per student, primary is $17,000, and secondary is $22,000 and change. I presume the secondary is our elementary from pre-K to 5?
Correct. Secondary is middle and high school.
Oh, it's middle and high school.
Right.
Okay, so primary is the elementary and,
Yes, pre-K through, well, pre-K through 6 is how it got divided for these numbers. For this budget.
6 is still considered?
Well, because of the way we had to divide it, because of the Articles of Agreement, yes, 6th grade was considered in that in terms of head count and money, in splitting the budget, because Wyndham sends their students here in 7th grade, so the residents of Wyndham are allowed to vote on the 7-12 budget, not the pre-K 6 budget. So it's all because of the way the district is configured, why it was divided that way.
Why is the secondary so much higher?
It really is, it's not reflective of the actual cost of education, because it's really one pre-K 12 budget split artificially because we have to split it according to the Articles of Agreement, and it's split on head count.
Okay. So what is the cost per student in the whole system?
Just over $20,000.
Right about 20,000.
Like 20,100.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but last year was around 17, 18?
So we don't have a price for the pre-K through 12 unified budget because we didn't have it.
System's changing. Yeah,
Exactly.
I
Right.
understand that.
Now, last year Leland and Gray was almost 20.
18.
Yeah, it was 19 something, so, it's not,
It's-
it
just
is
like-
more,
like
but
you
it's,
said, it's getting out of sight, and I know it's not gonna pass in the next vote, so I don't know what you're gonna do, but It seems like it's gonna be an ongoing problem.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm Chris Robbins from Jamaica, and I wanted to ask how much of the increase that from the last year, or maybe the last 2 years, is due to demographics, falling number of students? And if the budget fails, what degrees of freedom do you have? What's going to go?
I'll take the first question.
Thank you.
The amount of students has been consistently declining. The way they calculate students in Vermont is called an equalized pupil. So it's not the actual student, but there's a formula that goes through. The easiest way to say that is that a pre-K student is about a half of a student. A student between K and 6 is a 1, and a student 7 through 12 is 1.13. You add that all up, and then it goes through a formula that includes social economic status, historically marginalized groups, and then you get what is called a equalized pupil count. Our current equalized pupil count is 519. 2 years ago, it was closer to 550. So you take that and you divide that by the budget, and that gives you your cost per student. So when you have a reduced number of equalized pupils, even if you kept your costs the same or dropped as in this budget, your costs can still increase because you have less students in which to divide the total cost by. In terms of the second question, I would leave that to the board.
In terms of the second question, the 85% of the costs of educating students is people. And if we have to, we can make further cuts, but we start talking about programs and people at this point. There's not a lot of manipulation of facilities and not doing needed repairs and band-aiding things left to do. It would be, starting to look at what programs what programs can we eliminate or cut back on that, affect the least children or we don't think are necessary or something like that. The next round would involve that level of pain.
I have another question.
Sure.
So what is the average class size
In elementary or in,
here? Because that's the one that's the biggest issue right now.
well, so I would just again say that the budget was arbitrarily,
I get that.
Okay.
but There's only 290 kids here, so.
so each class is different, A specialized class of AP could be very small, could be under 10. Classes that are required for high school, biology, algebra 2, you could have anywhere from 15 to 22 students. So it depends on the course, the specificity of the course, to get an average class size. So specialty classes can be anywhere from 8 to 16, and I would say general education courses can be anywhere from 15 to 24.
And what about in elementary school?
Elementary school, you have anywhere from 11 to 25. Depending on the school, the breakdown
I
of,
guess that Newbrook has the biggest population.
or exactly. So you,
And from what I understand, Jamaica's going to be close.
it all depends, right, on the grade, right? So if in first grade, you might have 9 students, and in second grade, you might have 17, so you're not going to combine those classes. But yeah, I would say the range in elementary would go from about 9 to 25, and in,
Because I'm coming from Brookline, where my daughter's class had 3 kids.
Right.
My son's class had 8. So any given year, there was a 3-grade combination.
right, those kinds of decisions we make to the best in the best interest of students while respecting the investment we're asking the taxpayers to make. Does that kind of give you a range?
But as you heard from Mr. Freeman and myself, this increase, I read in here that this budget is down 7,000 from, or 700,000 from everybody's collective budget last year, but I find that hard to believe. My taxes are going up 13 cents a 100,000.
So just to give you a quick breakdown of that 700,000 is you theoretically take everything that happened last year and you roll in all the negotiated increases in healthcare and in salaries. And this was the first year that we had any engineering studies that were done for any of the buildings. So it's the first time that any public official knew what investments were necessary from an outside party to make. That collects all to 12,400,000. And this board then built a budget that got to 11,800,000 and then took another 100,000 away at the last meeting. That would be 11,700. So that 12,400 to that 11,700 is that 700,000. But the loss of equalized pupils affects how the calculation is for the cost per student, which derives the tax rate, which you referred to earlier about being increased. A couple points I would make about consolidating is that there is an 8 cents decrease in the unified tax rate just by consolidating. All the small schools grants are converted into merger grants. That equalizes to about $300,000 in revenue, which offsets the tax rate.
But doesn't that go away after a couple of years?
No, once you decide to merge, those are in perpetuity. They are not like a small schools grant, which has to be done every year.
What about the first one?
The 8 cents is year one, and then it's 6 cents, it's 4 cents, it's 2 cents.
So eventually that goes away.
It does go away. And you also have what's called a hold harmless provision, which means that you cannot rise by more than 5%. And so, for example, the Newfane community and the Brookline community were both held under that 5%. So if consolidation did not happen, you would, whatever that board decided that tax rate would be, you would not have that 5% protection. You would not have the investment of the small schools grant, and you would not have the 8 cents reduction. In general, consolidation gives all parties the opportunity to participate in a 20-cent reduction on the tax rate. But it affects every single community differently, and that it's hard to hypothesize what each individual community would have made had consolidation not happened. So none of these are hard and fast comparisons, but
And I get it, this is the first year you have.
absolutely. But I'm just trying to, yeah,
I get it, but
absolutely.
I'm thinking I'm gonna have to get a third job to pay my taxes, is what I'm thinking, and that's just not gonna happen. So, I don't know, I don't envy anyone. I worked in a district where 5 years ago, they ripped 40 people because they were kind of, they operate currently like you guys are going to, or like this district's going to next year. But the taxpayers were screaming, and so their answer was to rip 40 people. And so luckily I survived that.
And I think that's what Chairman
And I get it. I
alluding
mean,
to. That would be the
I
next
have to
round
tell
of
you that
conversation.
the district I currently work in, because there is not an extra body, and they are the hardest working teachers I've ever met in my life. So I get it, but somewhere there has to be a middle ground, and maybe our governor needs to be a part of this, because he's wondering why everybody's moving out of Vermont. Well, because we can't afford to live here, between property taxes, sales tax, and income taxes. So I don't envy any of you. I know it's a hard job, but I hope you're listening to what we have to say as well.
No, I mean, you are bringing up the points that this board has been wrestling with since its creation. And it's important to understand the difficult choices that your community members are making. So I appreciate it very much, yeah.
In Brookline, we have an aging population, and I fear for my neighbors because,
I mean, as you said, there are no easy answers.
yeah.
It's just the honest struggling with the balancing of our neighbors and the needs of our students.
Yeah, and I get that.
I'm very proud to work for this board as they struggle through that. And I very much appreciate the community involvement that holds our feet to the fire. Because it is not, it doesn't go without deep thought. I can promise you that.
Yes, sir.
Officer Calvin, how many combined grades do we have?
It depends on which school. So in Newbrook, there are no combined grades. In Townsend, there are projected to have 3 to 4 combined grades. And in Jamaica, all of the grades are combined. There'll be 3 classrooms, pre-K, K, a 1, 2, 3, and a 3, 4, 5.
A1, 2, 3.
A 1, 2, 3.
No, pre-K and K,
Pre-K,
and then
K.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, yes.
I have kids a product of that, not in favor of that. But I get.
It speaks to the challenging
I get it.
dance that you are.
Yep, I do, I get it.
Yes, sir.
I'm Bill Gunther from Adjournment in Newfane, and I had some questions on some of the percentage increases. I looked over the typically indecipherable AOE sheet that came out of Act 60. I did read all 144 pages of Act 60 and Act 68. I'm not sure I understand it all, but anyways, I do have a few questions. Last year in Newfane, our school tax rate was $1.75.4 per hour. And if I'm reading this chart correctly, and again, this is out of page 17 from the flyer that came out before town meeting. That is stating that the prorated homestead tax rate will be $1.90, 90.37 cents. So if you do the math, and you subtract that out, it basically comes out to an 8.53% increase, or 14.97 cents, which again comes out to 8.53. I'm a little concerned about this because I've recently retired and I'm trying to live on a lot less money now. Where I'm a little confused is on the handout that I picked up tonight. It shows a 3.85% overall increase. So I'm trying to get a sense of what numbers are coming from where.
Sure, so the 3.85 is the overall budget. And the one that you're talking about, Newfane, is very specific to the tax rate increase. Two separate calculations.
Okay. But we are looking at that rate that was listed, and I realize that these are a moving target when,
It is, but you are definitely right in that range of the 1.97.
So we're still looking at the 190, $1.90 and 30 cents.
So if you didn't have the 5% hold harmless, you would be at 1.97. But we are projecting you to be at the 1.9 and change, depending on.
Yeah. Okay. The other comment, when you look at the bottom of that chart, and this is more a comment really for the state, and I spoke to the governor about this yesterday at a luncheon down in Brattleboro. The prorated union income cap percentage for members of the district, when you go down, that all the towns except Wyndham are 3.23%. We were essentially sold a bill of goods, I think, back when Act 60 came out. We were told that education costs were not going to exceed 2.0%. So it's more just an editorial concept that the state hasn't kept their word for it.
That's a very good thing to point out, though.
But we're definitely looking at the $1.90 0.37?
That is our prediction as of right now, yes.
Okay.
But you are correct until the legislature leaves, predicted of May 18th, until they decide what the yield is. We won't know, but yes, as of tonight, that is our best guess.
Thank you.
More comments, more questions? Anything anybody up here wants to add?
I just really, please vote, and please encourage your neighbors to vote. We need as much input as possible. As the gentleman from Wyndham pointed out, we had less than 10% overall of registered voters that voted on the budget. So the more that we can have people be aware that we have a vote on Tuesday. If you can't come on Tuesday, you can pick up an absentee ballot. You can do it tomorrow. You can do it on Monday. But we need everybody to vote. We need all voices heard. We have very difficult decisions for your elected officials to make, and we need that input. So please encourage your neighbors to go out and vote.
Anything else? Stay here as long as we need to.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Just going back to my original point, I'm just trying to get a sense of where we're seeing an increase. It's that large. Is it salary contracts, infrastructure, or just some other factors in the consolidation that I don't fully understand?
It's really it's a combination of things. We have negotiated increases. Healthcare costs go up every year, but we're also a victim of declining enrollment. We've lost, in the last 2 years, we've lost about 50 ADM. So even if you decrease your budget, which we have, you're dividing by a smaller number, and the cost per pupil goes up, and that works into the formula to hurt the tax rate. The declining enrollment is really the thing that gets us, because you just keep pulling back and pulling back and pulling back, and as those numbers decrease, your costs either look like they stay the same or actually go up when you spend less. So.
Because when you've got fixed costs, you've got to run the school.
Right, it costs so much to run this building, whether you have 200 students in it or 400 students in it. You've got the fixed costs there, and then the additional costs of staff.
Have there been any proposals on this concept of equalized pupil cost? That's, one of these sort of things floating around out there that most people have no idea what it means.
In terms of from the state level, I don't think they're going to be leaving the equalized pupil anytime soon. It is the thing that allows Act 60 and Act 68 to play itself out.
And I should have looked this up prior, my apologies for that, but what is the base amount that they're using this year for that cost?
So 2 years ago, they started using the yield, and so that is what fluctuates, and that's what basically buys $1 on the tax rate. Right now, it is at $10,565, but that is the 5th time it has changed since February. And that is the ultimate mechanism that the legislature has in order to change the tax rate as it flows down to individual towns. So we built the original budget on a 10.7, and then it changed to 10.655. And then it was somewhere in between 10.655 and the current 10.565, and I would expect that it will change. Going back to your original point of that $1.90, could be $1.92, could be $1.88. I know it won't go higher than 5%.
Excuse me.
It will not go higher than 5%. We do have that protection in for each community, so you can count on that.
So let's hope they don't muck anything up.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Mrs. Nystrom, do you mind if I ask you a question really quickly? I was wondering if, when the cuts were made at whichever district you're in, did that affect enrollment at all? I was wondering if that fluctuated.
We actually get more kids every year. In fact, they're increasing a kindergarten and a first grade in my building next year to keep the class sizes under 20, because I'm in a K-2 building. And in fact, in each elementary school, they're increasing 1 or 2 classrooms to keep the class sizes under 20.
So the positions that were cut weren't specials or anything like that, then it was just to increase class
I
sizes,
don't
do you
know,
know?
because I was my first year there, so I
Okay.
don't know what positions were cut.
Right.
I know I originally got a reduction in force notice, because I think it was anybody who'd been there 4 years or less. And then my principal came and asked me to reapply, because once the dust settled, they had a couple positions open. So,
Thank you.
Yes.
This lady, I don't think has had the chance, I'll let her go first.
Joyce
You were hidden
Ruggiero
behind
from
that.
Townsend. Joyce Ruggiero from Townsend. I'm a little embarrassed to say my husband and I don't attend these meetings very often, and we realize this is something that we should do. We're retired, been living here full-time for 13 years, and our children are in their 50s. So this is all new for us. We really don't know what's going on, and I'm sorry to say. However, I have volunteered at Brookline School for several years, and then when they merged with New Fang, I volunteered for about 8 years. And I enjoyed Scotty very much. I've worked with him and done some programs. And all I can say is that the consolidation has been very good. I think it could be better in some ways. They do not have a full-time nurse. They need more special ed, yeah. And I think I think once this gets going, the consolidation will be very beneficial to the students, because they will have the nurse on staff. They will have I think a larger special ed department, maybe an OT room. I don't know enough about it. I hope this is in the works. And my question to you is, have you discussed how you can recruit new students here to attract more students? I mean, because towns can decide, right, where they want to go to high school.
Yes.
So is there anything?
Yeah, I would
That
say
can be
that
done?
our principal at Leland and Gray is a very active recruiter and is very conscious of the communication of the value that a small high school can bring to a community. We're not trying to compete with 1,500 kids in a middle high school.
No.
We're trying to lean in to being a personalized middle high school. And I think we're very fortunate to have the leadership we have here that is very active in exactly what you're talking about. And then to your previous point, those are the exact kinds of things that consolidation is currently bringing.
It's the
Reorganization
special ed,
of how we are delivering specialized instruction to our students, how we are increasing our universal instruction, how we are upskilling all of our professionals, so that we can minimize the need for specialized instruction over time. But that does take time. It does take training, it does take organization, it does take systematic increases. But we have a very talented team that is working extremely hard, but it does take some time.
Yeah. Well, we hope to attend more of these meetings, so we
I'm
know more of what's going on.
very pleased that you are here tonight, and you are more than
You can watch the
welcome.
meetings too on BCTV if you don't make
Pardon me?
You can watch the meetings that you don't make.
Oh, my husband does, yeah. Occasionally.
Yep.
I don't know if the board members would be willing to comment on this, or some of the administration. I was wondering how the teaching staff in this whole process has reacted to this. Is it really positive, or do they question it? Are they getting used to it, or how do they like it? What's their take on it?
Specifically,
know?
are you talking about the consolidation?
Yes.
So they haven't experienced it yet. We won't be deploying until next fall. But I will say to a person that our teaching staff has been unbelievably professional during a very challenging time. They had to wait to know where they were going to be teaching in the elementary world because we needed to build a budget to decide how many teachers we needed. And that's very disconcerting when you've been working in the same building or the same grade level or the same couple grade levels for many years to not know. And unfortunately, that responsibility comes on me as the superintendent, and I was not able to let them know until about 3 weeks ago. And even doing that communication, I have to also let them know, going back to Ms. Nystrom's point, that yes, I'm telling you, you get to work here next year. However, that's only if the budget passes. Because if the budget doesn't pass, I have to let everybody know that reductions in force are highly likely. But I would say our teachers have been beyond flexible and adaptable to seeing the benefits that consolidation can bring. The collaboration with grade levels, the working across buildings, making sure that professional development happens not just in one building, but in all elementary buildings, looking at the opportunities for growth. So I could not be more proud of my colleagues, the professional staff of West River.
I'm sorry, you're like hidden behind Rich there.
Hi, Chris Robin from Jamaica. I'd like to follow up your answer to my last question on what will happen if the budget doesn't pass. And I'm assuming there are state mandated courses that you must offer. So does that mean you're going to cut the AP courses and the other enrichment courses if it comes to that?
So my role, if a budget doesn't pass, would be to inform the board of exactly what you're talking about, what is allowed and what is not, and what are the class size guidelines versus the class size allowables. So those are two separate things. But yes, like in the middle and the high school, there are certain courses that need to be offered to satisfy the educational quality standards of the state of Vermont. So you could not cut those courses, but you could increase class size. We could be like other states and have 30 to 45 kids in a class. Those are, as long as you offer the class, that is a distinct possibility. I don't think that anybody in the community or anybody on the board leans towards that direction, but that is the long possibility of that. So I would inform the board of what the parameters are of what they could do, and then they would have to do the deep discussion of what they would like to present to the community. You bet.
I have another question. So is it still block scheduling here?
In that middle high school?
Yeah.
Yes.
For the high school?
Yes.
Because I went here many, many, many years ago, and it was not, and we had fewer teachers. Is that something that would be looked at?
I think that if this budget doesn't pass, we're going to have to look at a lot of things. Robert.
I can actually say, having been here so I'm Bob Tebow, I'm the principal here. Taught here years ago when we made the switch from an 8-period day to a block schedule. And I was principal of another high school that did the same thing. It was actually more efficient use of staff to have block schedule. You get more actual teaching time out of the teachers when you have a block schedule. So it actually, you need fewer people to operate this way. So.
Well, there were more kids when I went here. And we had,
Oh, for sure, yes.
We had fewer teachers.
Well,
there were 3 math teachers, there were 3 English teachers. 3
in the high school, so we did, in this budget for next year, we have reduced core teachers. We'll have 2 3/4 math teachers. We'll have 2.5 English, 2
Is that just for
2.5
us, or is
science.
that 7 through 12?
That's the high school part. The
Because
middle,
this was 7 through 12, we had the same teachers, they had to teach both.
yeah. So the middle school has a separate team of teachers of 1 for each department to serve those grades. But the high school will have smaller departments than when I taught here. And when I taught here, there was 150 more kids. So That's the reality. I will just add one thing to what Bill was talking about, the question about the reduction in offerings. I mean, when you're talking about trying to recruit people, I go to Floodbrook, I go to Dover, I go, Wardsboro is another school we've started to trickle kids away from, and we used to get virtually all of them. What was another one? I forget what the other one was, but we do these recruiting trips where we go and we meet with the kids who could potentially be coming here. And, the concern is, because that brings in revenue and because that helps offset some of those factors, there's a delicate balance between reducing what the offerings that kids have to having not enough that nobody else wants to come here. So there's a tightrope walk that we have to do in making sure that we have sufficient offerings that people will still want to come here from those tuition towns, and making sure that we're doing what's financially responsible. So it's a tough road to hoe, but I could tell you that if Bill gives me the direction to reduce staffing at the high school level or at the middle school level, there will be fewer options for kids to take. There's just no way around that at this point. There'll be bigger classes too, but there will be fewer options.
That's a good segue.
We needed that. I think we all needed that.
Yeah, there's that'll lighten things up. Anybody want to follow that? Yes, sir.
This, Bill Gunther from Newfane again. Just wondered, again, looking at the handout, the positions, there's a decrease of 3.75 teaching positions and 0.5 principal positions. I'm wondering which of the schools those reductions are, and were they RIFs or retirements or some sort of consolidation through efficiency?
Sure. The principal position was a reduction in force, went from a 1 to a 0.5.
Which school?
At Jamaica.
At Jamaica.
Jamaica has currently 56 students. We're projecting 30 to 34 students next year. The 3.75, one came from elementary school based on school choice and a voluntary retirement. And 2.75 occurred at the middle high school. And we had 0.5 was a reduction in force. Is that correct?
Well, they're all
reduction,
in force.
right.
Some people who left who helped do it by attrition.
Correct.
But yes, they were all reductions in force.
So 1 at the elementary level in teaching, 2.75 at the middle high school, and 0.5 principal at the elementary level.
Thank you.
You bet.
Anything else?
Vote. Please vote.
Yes, please vote.
Tell your neighbors. All right, Mike, you want to make your motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
One second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Ken, you want to?